Jerry, hit it.
Yeah, I always do things on cue. So, good evening, I'm Jerry Barnes, I'm the city engineer, I'm also the floodplain manager for the area. So, tonight we're here to talk about the flood issues that we have after the Telegraph and the Mescal fires. We have with us tonight, we have Forest Service in the audience. We have the County Emergency Management, County Public Works, Tom Holman, who's doing a lot of the mapping for the area. Who else? We have council here, mayor's here, and what we're going to do is have a few presentations. Corey from J. Fuller is on Zoom. He's going to explain these burn intensity maps that are over on the wall over here. This is for the globe area, these maps are. So we're going to give everybody a chance to ask questions, and there's the right people in the room to make sure you get those answered. So with that, I would invite the mayor up to the podium to say, and we're all going to have to talk from the podium because it's the only place that Paul can figure out to point the camera to.
I just want to welcome everybody for showing up today. I know it's short notice, but again, with a map that was released, I guess, yesterday, and all the calls of concern that we received, so we wanted to make sure that the mapping was explained to all of us to make sure we understood it. And if it is severe, then we need to know that. If it isn't, we really need to understand it. And also, we want to let everybody know all the things that are going on between the county, the city, the town of Miami for mitigation for this flood. I mean, post-fire mitigation started even when the fire was still going. We were soliciting money, and now things are in place to start putting people in places to clean up and do different things so we can try and limit the severity of any type of flooding. So thank you for coming.
So I just wanted to comment a little bit on the maps before I turn it over to Corey. These maps are if we do nothing. If the city and the county does nothing to mitigate this flood coming on, this is what could happen with a 2.4 inch rain in 3 hours, where 1.8 inches is within I think a 1 hour span. So this is what could happen. This is what J.E. Fuller showed in their hydrology, and that's a pretty good segue for you, Corey.
Corey, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Before I get started, though, the precipitation that was on the models, as you guys already heard, it's a pretty good event. The way they describe it is as being a 10-year event, which means basically that it has a 10% chance of happening within any given year. And the rainfall distribution was based off of an event that happened last year on August 16th in Kellner Canyon. And so up in here, this area, so at this station right here, if you can see my screen, had an inch of precipitation in about a half an hour. So that's kind of what the model is kind of based off of. And we applied that to a 10-year recurrence interval or 10% chance of happening. And so worth noting that it's probably, I guess I'll start also just saying that there's plenty of people in this audience that probably have other information, and feel free to speak up if you have any questions or have something to add. But let's go ahead and start looking at where the fire burn is in the watersheds. So the red line is the extent of the Telegraph fire, and within that you can see some yellow, you can see some blue, some green areas, and as well as some red areas. Most of the watershed that can come into Miami or into Globe on this side are moderate to low burn severity. So that's all accounted for within the model. And that precipitation has to occur on top of the burn scar for the model to produce the kind of flows that we're showing in that map. The discharges that resulted from that model, pretty much you can equate to a 100-year event, or something that could occur with a 1% chance of happening with any given year. So this fire, with the burn severity that it had, ended up being that a 10-year event was more equivalent to a 100-year event. Had this been a higher burn severity, that the models would have suggested that discharge would increase, or vice versa. If more of this area had been low burn severity, then you would have less discharge for the same amount of precipitation. So in summary, I guess the precipitation that you might have is the same likelihood last year as it is this year, but the watersheds conditions have changed on here to allow for more flows. And with that, these burn severities, what they're calling for at this point is about a 3 to 5 year recovery period for the watershed to kind of return back to normal. So it's a gradual process. The system can be considered more flashy though within that 3 to 5 year period, and then as you get nearer to that 5 year period, we're assuming the chaparral will come back to a way that the watershed won't be as flashy and won't produce as much runoff during a rainfall storm event. So let's take the model to a little bit further. Let's say that you had 1 to 1.8 inches of rainfall. Let's say that happened over a 24-hour period. The effects on the watershed would be much less. So a lot of times with these fires, your watershed can handle up to maybe a 1/4 inch of precipitation within 15 minutes, even on this burn condition. As we start crossing that threshold and get more precipitation, you're going to have more runoff. So that intensity has a big factor on it. So our models show a 1.8 inches of rainfall within an hour. So that's a pretty good amount of rainfall within an hour. The Kellner Canyon last year, on this station right here, reported an inch of rainfall within a half an hour on August 16th. So even that event that happened last year wouldn't have produced the flows that you're seeing on here. So even though you have, the models are showing like a 10% chance of happening within any given year, another way to think about that is there's a 90% chance of it not happening within any given year. So those are kind of numbers that I wanted to throw out for you to consider. These numbers, the 10% was kind of used as Gila County wants to prepare for a reasonable good amount of precipitation and have people prepared for that possibility. So that's a quick summary, and it's kind of strange speaking to an empty screen. So it's hard to know if anybody has any questions, but let me know if you do.
So Corey, I guess I'll ask a question. So the real danger here is the intensity of the rain, correct?
It is. Yep. Yeah. So
So a long,
if you had,
long period of rain wouldn't bother as much as a short period with intense rain.
That's correct. And to that also, it depends. So here's some watersheds coming into Miami. The Bloody Tank Swash is what that watershed is called, and then the Russell Gulch. And so if you could have an intense part of the storm outside of the burn area down in here, or even on this low burn severity, and it would produce less runoff than if you were to have it in the moderately burned area. So, but the intensity drives it. In my experience, anything less than a quarter inch within 15 minutes has been pretty good for a watershed. But once you start crossing that threshold after a fire, that's when things can start to happen.
So also, did you take into consideration the second event? In other words, once this ground is saturated, what happens when it rains again?
It definitely has a factor on there. On the Schultz fire, which happened back in 2010 in Flagstaff, we noticed that the first monsoon seasons, the rains on those produced less runoff than the later ones, even though they had a similar intensity, similar amounts. The ground was able to take some of it in, and as it becomes more saturated after you get a few rains, that it does have more potential for sure.
Okay, so the only thing I just would like to say is that we are preparing for a worse flood than what we had in the Pinellas. It's real important that the city and the county and the state, for that matter, get out and do what they need ahead of time to get the creeks cleaned out, to get the structures opened up. If we do have an intense rain that's going to cause flooding, the quicker we can get them out of our city, the better. The quicker we can get the water out of the city, the better. So one of the things that we're doing tonight is Michelle has forms. If you own property on the creek, please sign one of the cooperative agreements with her so Steve can get his contractors in to clean the deadened down and the smaller brush out of that creek to get the water flow. It might just be what saves your property. So with that, Carl, do you want to come up and talk a little bit?
Well, and Jerry, was Corey going to be able to go through the close-ups of the maps of those actual flood maps?
Corey, do you have that ability to do that?
Yes, I'll go ahead and open those up.
Corey, can you hear me when I talk?
I do, yes.
No, you have a full house. We just had the camera turned a different way, so.
Cool. No, thank you.
Most of these maps are on the wall.
Is that showing up fairly well on your guys' side?
If you can make it a little bit bigger and then just kind of describe the colors, if you can get to, I think everybody's really concerned about Broad Street and the downtown area of Globe, which is,
okay.
I'm not sure what number.
Yeah, so probably looking in E4 and E5 range, or E4, so I'll go to D4 and E4. And so these, while I'm going there, these models were created within a two-dimensional model called Flow2D, and what it does is it allows for precipitation as well as infiltration into the soils based off parameters that we input. And so the rainfall we've already touched upon, and what changes a lot is the infiltration is what changes and what runs off. So those are both the rainfall and the infiltration. is being what's being taken place right here. So am I getting kind of close?
Page 10 through 12.
I think two more.
There you go.
So you got Miami going off in this direction. So this is what you were saying, Broadway, right in here is where
Actually,
a lot of
Broad Street.
No, that's actually the hospital area out
But that's, yeah.
Page 12 is the downtown area.
okay. Thank you.
There, that's it. And so Corey, that deep blue purple, that's the 5-foot area,
Yes. Yep.
and that's outside
have
of the
5.
controlled canal.
Yeah. And so if some of you might be familiar with your 100-year floodplain also, so this white line is kind of your 100-year regulatory floodplain also. And so you can see that in a lot of places it kind of matches up to that. So if you're already inside that 100-year floodplain, that's what we're anticipating if we get a 10-year event.
Could you have them zoom into the colored area?
So purple is 5, and then 3 to 4, 2 to 3, and then what's not shown on here is anything less than a half a foot.
And Corey, can you zoom in on the legend, or at least pull up the screen so they can see that legend you had on there? There.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so then this has all the parameters, and these are available online on the city website, and they're here in the room. And so.
Yep. And as we've mentioned, so this was also mentioned earlier, but it describes the storm where it's a 10-year event. A precipitation storm that might occur within 3-hour period with a total of 2.4 inches. But then what's really driving a lot of this is this 1.8 inches within an hour. So it's just a whole lot of water within an hour.
And Corey,
and that's all described in this part of it.
As we get into taking questions, I think I'd like to have you be able to zoom into the areas that, if somebody has a question about their property, maybe we can coordinate that so you can, they can help you zoom into the area they want to look at and ask any questions, or at least look at that. So, but thank you for being able to pan through and show us all this. And so, Jerry, I think now we go on to the county.
Yeah, I think next we'll hear from Carl from Emergency Management. One of the things that we wanted you to hear tonight is we have Carl from Emergency Management here, but we also have Steve Sanders from the County Public Works and John Angulo from City Public Works. They're doing a lot of stuff to make sure none of this happens. So we wanted you to be able to ask them questions as well.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl Melfort, Emergency Manager for Gila County. I've been with the county for going on 6 years now, doing emergency management. So, and an active 6 years it's been for sure. This year kind of taking the cake as far as activity goes. So right now my main focus is I run the County Emergency Operations Center, which kind of coordinates the efforts of the local resources and how they respond to the incidents. So we've assembled a team between the City of Globe, the Town of Miami, and the county, and all of our partners, federal, state, private, to take a proactive approach at combating the potential that we're facing here So we've got the jump on it as soon as we could. We were moving into these mitigation efforts while we were still, on fire, and had active evacuations going. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the life safety portion of this. Post-fire flooding is dangerous. I mean, there's no way around stating that. So one of the most important things that you guys can do is just to stay aware. The best way to do that is to sign up for Everbridge, which is our emergency notification program. You can sign up at readygila.com/Everbridge. If you don't have internet, you can call our hotline 928-910-4009. If you want the convenience in doing it here, Justin, raise your hand. That's Justin Quarles, my EM specialist. Give him your information. He'll get you signed up for it. There is an app available, but that does not mean that Everbridge is a program or an internet only type of thing. You can get signed up in that system, set it up for a landline, and you'll get a phone call in the event of an emergency. Where this really comes in handy is in the event that a National Weather Service flash flood warning is issued, that will automatically rebroadcast through Everbridge as well. So I know those of you that have a cell phone will get that anyways through a push notification, but I'd rather have you get it twice than not at all. I've also had conversations with the National Weather Service, and how they issue those flash flood warnings is based off of thresholds. They have set thresholds for each area as to what they believe could trigger a flash flood. I've asked them to set those thresholds down to a minimum until we have, I'd rather be cautious now than cautious later. So those thresholds are set pretty low, so a small amount of rain will activate those warnings as a precautionary measure, because there's no real telling what exactly how much water would take to trigger that initial flood. We've seen some severe post-fire flooding as a county. If you want to see kind of what that looks like, get on YouTube and look up Payson, Arizona post-fire flooding. The Highline fire it was about an 80,000 acre fire that caused some pretty severe post-fire flooding, and perhaps the most dangerous part of that is the debris that comes with it. That'll give you a good idea of what that looks like. I mean, it's damaging for infrastructure, it's damaging for homes, and it's something that we need to be aware of, not to make anyone nervous or anyone scared, but aware that this is a real risk that we face. So we've gone into starting mitigation efforts. I'll let Steve touch more on that, but as far as getting the washes cleaned out, the biggest part with that debris coming down is it gets hung up on stuff, and that's what clogs those channels. So we've got, I believe it was 9 contractors on contract to go into these washes and start cleaning it out and free up anything that could capture this debris and hold it up and cause flooding issues. We've also had several volunteer groups and Gila County Public Works working on filling sandbags for individuals. If you live near a watershed, it may not be a bad idea to get some sandbags and create a barrier between that watershed and your home. It could definitely save property. Another thing that I wanted to discuss is especially for those in the 6-shooter, Ice House, and Kellner Canyon areas, that in the events of a flash flood warning, the message being pushed out is not going to be an evacuation message. It's going to be a shelter in place or head to high ground message. And the reason being is a lot of these canyons and a lot of these areas have 1 to 2 ways in and same amount out. And to coin an example, let's look at 6-shooter Ice House and Kellner. The 2 main ways out are a low water crossing and a bridge. If those get taken out, then we've got people trapped on the roadway that is lower in elevation than the majority of the homes out there. So in the events of a flash flood warning, I would encourage anybody that lives in the canyons to either stay in your home if you sit at a high elevation, or find a route to get to higher ground. Post-fire flooding is dangerous, but is also very fast. So water comes through, and towards the end of the rain, it drops back down. So it's a quick and scary thing that happens, but in my line of work, life comes over property every single time. And this is a very, very short watershed. Some of the other post-fire flooding issues that we've dealt with in the past, we've had like a 15, 20-minute window where we know how long it's going to take for the water to come down. It's significantly shorter than that here. By the time that water starts running, we're looking at a matter of minutes to respond accordingly. So in the event of a flash flood warning, I'd encourage you guys that property comes second, life comes first. So to get yourself to somewhere safe. So other than that, I think, I imagine we'll do questions towards the end, but I think that's all I have for you guys. Thank you.
Steve, could you come down and talk about what the county's doing at this point?
Steve Sanders, Gila County Public Works. When the fires were still going on, county retained J.E. Fuller. Corey's their lead engineer for the team to put together to create these maps through all the drainages for us to show us the potential of what may happen with a certain sized event. They're also preparing debris flow maps for all of the washes, how far we expect debris to come down, in addition to mud flow maps. My understanding from Corey, a debris flow map is more like concrete coming down, immovable. The mud doesn't create quite the damage the debris does when and if it comes. So the county reached out to probably 12 local contractors and put them under contract for the next year with 5 years options to renew those contracts to clean in the creeks. Of course, we got to have everybody's permission to get into the creeks to clean, and that's what's going on right now. The town of Miami owned the majority of the wash through their town, so we sent contractors in there. I think yesterday they started. Should have the majority of that wash cleaned out by sometime tomorrow. FMI took it upon themselves to clean all of the washes on their own property, so they have done that. And then with sandbagging, we started just filling sandbags with public's help and volunteer groups for people to come get sandbags. In addition to coming and getting them, we have staged them in different areas from wheat fields to the upper end of Kellner Canyon to the college and six-shooter, police department in Miami for people just to come use and help themselves to the prison. We sent sand out there in sandbags. They're filling sandbags. I would imagine by now we've probably filled 15,000 sandbags. We just got an order of 100,000 bags in. We're continuing to fill sandbags. You need sandbags, let us know. We're not going to come place them for you, but we'll bring you a few pallets, or if you want to come get pallets, you have a truck, we'll load them up for you. There to help that way. In addition, what Corey didn't mention was J.E. Fuller, we've retained them to put rain gauges and weather stations all through the burn scar. They have a team in there today. I don't know where they finished, but they started on the backside on the Dripping Springs watershed, and they have one going there. There'll be one going up towards Simpson Lake and another one up on Madera Peak. In addition to 3 or 4 gauges that were already in place up Pioneer Pass, above the round table at the head of Kellner Canyon, and some up on Signal Peak that they're rebuilding. Hopefully by this time next week, those gauges will be live. They will transmit any event of rain. Will go to emergency management. Carl can send out an Everbridge alert. And you will be able to, we'll have a link on the county's website. We'll give the city the link. You can go in and look at the gauges. Anybody can go in and look and see what's going on those places. In addition to that, we're putting cameras on some of the streams. I'm not really familiar with it. What I was told is the cameras will take pictures every 15 minutes and transport an image to, I don't know if they come into the county, they come into J.E. Fuller, to the state. I'm not real clear on how it will work, but if water starts running, then the cameras will turn to video and record the flows and let people know that water is coming. Those are a few of the things the county's doing.
Thank you.
I'll stick around to answer any questions
And
later.
again,
if
we'll
anybody
ask
has any.
questions. I did want to call on John Angulo. He's the Public Works Director for the City of Clove. So to let him tell you how the city's getting ready.
Good evening, everyone. We're basically kind of following a lot of the counties, the work that they're doing. We've been coordinating most of our efforts, working, kind of outlaying some other areas. Another concern that we do have, you're all familiar, we have McMillan Wash, we have McCormick Wash that actually fit into the main creek. So we're going to be addressing some of those as well with the city staff. The contractors are going to be focused on the main area. We did do some mitigation in 2017, so I believe we're a little bit better off than we were originally, but there's still many areas of concern. One area is that we have focused, we have 3 main creek crossings by Beer Tree and stuff, and I really want to put this out there. We have been approved for some flood mitigation gates. Traditionally, you see some cones and barricades out there in the evenings. There's going to be reflective signing because the biggest concern is many people just gauge by what they think they see. As Steve Sanders mentioned, there's debris in there. You know, many people try crossing and actually you run into a tree stump that you never saw and the water level's higher, you're going to get stuck and we're going to have issue, and there's a big safety liability there for everybody. So we're going to be installing those types of gates. It's not an overnight process, but those are on the horizon for everybody's public safety. One of the other things that we will be receiving tomorrow in conjunction with the counties, we will be getting the sandbag machine as well. So we're going to get that production up and running too. We do have 2 additional, probably we're going to hit some of the areas. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with most of the areas where the sandbags are available, but we're probably going to double up on the, currently around the community center, there's some there, and then by Canyon Fire, we'll probably put some more there because it's leading towards the canyons. But we're also going to probably put some down here by the teepee off of Cottonwood. There's plenty of areas so trucks or trailers can pull in and pull out, so we'll be stocking up that area for some of the downtown residents. And I would actually like to add on, my number is on the website. If you need any information, additional information, I'd be more than happy to reach out to you, get out there and get the information you need, or see whatever help we can do.
So at this point, I want to open up for questions. Steve, did you?
Jerry, I forgot. The county, with VHP's permission, created an emergency access road to the hospital from Regis Road in case Russell makes the hospital access impassable. So there will be 24-hour access to the hospital.
So Steve's saying that from Regis Road over, there's an emergency access through VHP to the hospital. The county has opened that up and gravelled it to make sure that that's passable. It'll be emergency access, and we also, the county and the state and myself and others, Carl was there, we met with the hospital to make sure that there wasn't anything else we could do. I know the state moved some barricades around for them out there, and so we want to make sure that if we do have a long period of an emergency, that we have medical access out there as well. And they have implemented their floodgates, so on the hospital, which means if they get notice, all they have to do is slide those into place. So we're good to go. Thank you, Steve, for reminding me. So what I'm going to do right now is open it up for questions, and remembering that we have fire, police, Forest Service. A lot of people are here that can answer any questions for you. So at this point, Floyd, I don't really need a slip to speak, but I do have one from Floyd if you want to come up to the microphone. Yes?
If you go to the microphone, I promise I won't turn the camera on.
So you just come up to the microphone, you ask your question, and we can answer it for you. So we're going to start with you, Floyd.
All right. First of all, I want to say thank you for getting us the meeting. I'm a little disappointed. I'm very disappointed that the entire city council is not here. Fernando Shepley's here. He's one of the few individuals that saved that senior housing and helping it come in the globe. This city council should be here. Now, I appreciate Al Gameros and everybody bringing it up, but anybody that has a concern is communicating to these city council people, and they should be more involved. I don't know whether anybody was ever here, but back when I was 5 or 6 years old, I remember when that Dadgum County Bridge up there plugged up. And I remember what happened to downtown Globe. And it was bad, really bad. There was nothing in the world ever that would prepare us for what could happen right now if it was to happen. And that was in, I believe it was in the winter time. I can't remember because I was a kid. But the Forest Service took it upon herself to do a lot of these backburns that has caused part of this problem. And it's stupid because the ecology changed when cattle grazing ruined this goddamn country 100 and something years ago. So to burn this stuff off or to have it burned because they have an opportunity to do it, put this town in severe jeopardy and lots of other places. I physically watched a lot of this stuff happen, and it was wrong. We'll never see grasslands back. What's going to come back in the 3 or 5 years is going to be manzanita and oak brush and the predominant stronger species that naturally grow in that soil, that evolved to grow in that soil 100 years ago. But the problem is that we got a severe problem coming at us in the event that happens. Lord willing, we'll just get these slow little rains and it'll work itself out in the 3 or 5 year plan. I have a major question. Has anybody physically walked 100% of that creek bed from the head of Six Shooter Canyon all the way down and targeted severe spots that are severely overgrown with brush? Could somebody answer that question? Physically walked 100% of it to see where the target points are that need to be attended right now, worked on. Has anybody done that? Can anybody answer that question? Okay, that tells me a lot.
So, yeah, we can answer it.
Has anybody walked from Six Shooter Canyon to the wide points down there on North Broad where it's going to be okay?
I would answer on the city's behalf, on my part, with the city. I've walked through the city limit area, but I cannot walk through private property or farther up. I have walked the city.
Because there is target areas that need to be done. Now, we hear about these people doing this and doing this. I got a woodcutter that I'd hire to work in my yard that could clean up every one of these goddamn bridges in probably 2 or 3 days with 2 or 3 men. I'm sorry, but I haven't seen a body on the ground since this thing hit the ground. Now, it's okay to be calm about it and to think, well, we're going to luck out and everything's going to be okay. But when you've got millions of dollars of inventory like Mr. Udon does, and I have a business down here on a curve in a creek, and that thing is choked full of goddamn cottonwood trees because, and you know how long it takes to go in and cut down a goddamn cottonwood tree and load it in a goddamn stinking dump truck? In one day, how much area could be cleaned with a little, even a battery-operated chainsaw? A lot. Down below those bridges, there's another bridge that's got things. And I was coming into town looking at another one today. These are choke points. And they're in the curves in the creek where the flow is going to be maxed out. And anybody that has any brains at all knows that the water will run in a straight line as fast as it can, and then it'll go where it has the least resistance, but it's going to move. So rather than just hit and miss here and there, they really need to focus on the most important parts. And if you can't get these contractors to get off their rear end and get into town, call some of us local people, and we'll hire some of these people that clean our yards, and they will come and cut the goddamn trees down. Now, it aggravates me that nothing is not moving right now. 24 hours a day, as long as there's daylight, somebody should be in these creeks cutting these target points out. That one down on South Broad, or North Broad, I keep referring to that as South, but on North Broad, and the next bridge down is really bad. There's a lot of cottonwood trees in there that are as high as this room, and they're going to stop the flow. Now, that's my take on it. I appreciate everything happened, but these council members, number one, they ought to be here. I didn't ask for a meeting for tonight. I asked for it to be put on the agenda for the very next meeting to discuss it specifically. But when we bring developments into town, And we come up with these goddamn problems. We don't stand around like a cow waiting to be milked to get things done. We work through it. When we didn't have the gas lines to finish the Madeira senior housing, I realized we had gas lines in a stack down here for Jess Hayes Road. It wasn't, and I talked to Larry Hanson, and it wasn't going to be used in a year. We come up with a problem within hours. Now, you got contractors, but in the meantime, hire local people. Get them cutting these goddamn places down. That's my suggestion. Action, not talk. Not worry about when the contracts are gonna get it done, because if a good flood comes and UDON's parking lot is sitting there inundated with water, because somebody didn't target a target area that's really overgrown, it's not good planning. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I don't mean to be rude about it, but we've been watching this and been talking and thinking and calling, and when this map come out, like, made your hair stand on end. You know, it's the wheels of justice turn slowly, but I'll guarantee you there's plenty of people that would step up the plate to help the city to do this stuff if they would reach out to them.
Right, that's good to know, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but the city has been in the creek. We've not only have been in there evaluating what we need to do, we have been, Michelle's been working on getting property owners to sign releases for us to go in.
know-
Well, let me finish, I'll let you finish. So we have been trying to get an area where a contractor can work. Steve Sanders has 12 contractors ready to go, Steve? 9 under contract.
How many are local?
How many are local, Steve? 9. So 9 local contractors ready to go. If we had the property releases done right now, we would move in there today.
You know what? There's plenty of travel points up and down that creek, and most of that creek is not owned by private landowners.
So
Here's what you do. You get those people in charge, you have a meeting with them, a staff meeting, and say, okay, we're moving on this tomorrow. We're starting out tomorrow. We're going to work 7 days a week until we get at least the major ports cleaned out. Up behind Jess Hayes Road, right down through there, coming behind, up where Connie's which is the predominant danger point for Broad Street. Is that whole area up there behind those houses is chock full of junk and cars. I mean, not cars, but brush and stuff. And these ones down below here that the city owns, there's plenty of places to get in there. So
like you say, the city has been evaluating it, and we are ready to move in. We have most of the
can I
area.
say something here, sir?
Okay, evidently.
Quit evaluating it. You want me to get a hold of a couple woodcutters? I'll get them goddamn started tomorrow if you'll reimburse them and pay them.
So I thought your
We don't
question
have to
was,
evaluate it.
walk through and evaluate.
I know.
So
But you know, when private industry and private businesses want to get something done, they get it done.
thank you.
And this has been going on for quite a while. We've known about this for a while. The map came out, thank you to Steve Sanders for doing that, to make more people aware of what it can be. And we all know that's worst case scenario. But it's
It's logical.
I have a lot more that I know, but I ain't.
Okay, well,
But it's time to rock and roll,
And we're ready to do that as well. So thank you. And you did remind me of one thing. I forgot to introduce the council members that are here. Mike Pastor is in the back. Freddie Rios is over here. Mayor Ramirez is here, and so is Fernando Shipley. We have 4 councilmen out of 7 in the room, so I thank you for reminding me to introduce them. So I'm open for more questions. Yes? Come to the mic, if you would, please. Thank you, Floyd.
Hello, my name is Tiana Holder. I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I just have a quick question. I'm just curious if the chamber is in a flood zone, and you might have talked about that. I was a little bit late, so I apologize. But Fernando's building, mine, and the Gila County Historical Museum are all right there across from the Old Dominion Mine Park. And I hadn't even thought of flooding for us, but I guess it could be a potential. So
Can you pull up that, Corey?
Yeah, sorry. So if we're right here, where do you think, which map do you think would be, we're on E6 right now.
So we would be probably in, it'd be D5, is that right? Is that D5? Probably D5.
Okay.
You're almost there, so it might even be E5. Yeah, it's way out.
Jerry,
Yes,
we can get that information for her back here.
Okay.
I'm pulling it up.
Oh,
okay.
That's
Tom's going to pull it up for you, but to answer your question, the creek is on the other side. I don't know where these maps show it, but it is in the floodplain on that side, according to the FEMA maps.
Yeah, and if you're in the FEMA maps, it's a good chance you're also within this flow also.
So one of the things we've done, Corey, is we've actually reached out to FEMA to do remapping because a lot of things like the highway was never really taken into effect when it comes to the putting the floodplain where it should be. So hopefully that'll be adjusted.
Yes. And you can see one on the screen here, kind of a location.
All right, so
Hey, Jerry, somebody texted me a question. I wanted to ask that to Corey. So, Corey, this is a quick question. When was the last time Globe had a monsoon event that like the one they're modeling, the 10-year event with a peak of 1.8 inches an hour? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I was digging into that and looking at it, and I can say, looking at the data, so depending on which location you're at, it hasn't happened within the last 6 years that as I was digging into the data. The last time it seemed to have happened was closer to about 8 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay, thank you. And
It's probably worth noting too that was at one of the precipitation stations, and it wasn't, so it didn't cover, so this model covers the rainfall over an entire watershed. So that is the last time that 1.8 inches that has covered this whole watershed is, I haven't found that within 1 hour.
Steve, how long has the station's been up in the Pinellas where we actually could document this?
I don't know, a lot of them the state put up and ADWR put up there. They're not county stations.
Okay, I thought
So-
it was 13 or something like that, 14, they put them up there.
Possibly.
So, yeah,
I would
Fernando.
guess in 20
So Signal Peak has been up there the longest that I'm aware of. There's a precipitation gauge up in that area, and it's been up there since the early 2000s.
I would guess the winter of 2010, Jerry. We
2010?
that's when Bloody Tank washed a
Okay.
lot of things away. We lost 6 Shooter Canyon Road that winter. It was a winter rain that had 3 or 4 inches in it.
So I think it's important to note that, to the person who called in, that this is something that could happen. It may not happen, we hope it doesn't happen, knock on wood, but it is a logical event.
Corey, thank you. And I think the one emphasis on the conversation we had was it's the volume of rain. It's how quick it comes. Or it's not the intensity of rain. That's why I'm not an engineer. So if it's a downpour over time, not so bad, but a very intense downpour. That's the issue. Thank you.
Sarah said she thought it was in 17.
2017, we took in a lot of rain too, and that was after the front side of the canals for so especially on Ice House Canyon. I don't know how Keller was affected, but I think they were as well. But that was kind of the initial response after the front side in the center of, I guess, of the signal peak.
So we got by with the Pinell fire. We actually did well after that, but between the city and the county and the federal government, we got in and cleaned the creeks, and we really prepared for that one. We're trying to do the same right now. And Fernando, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base real quick on insurance because some people were asking questions about insurance. So your homeowner's insurance does not cover flood. Okay, so if you want flood insurance, you have to have flood insurance. There are a couple things that make flood insurance kind of difficult for some people, and that is that it's not cheap if you need it. Okay, the other is you got to pay in full. Okay, and you can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm going to buy it, and as soon as monsoon season's over, I'm going to cancel it." You can cancel it if you want to, but they don't give you back your money unless you sold your property. Okay, and normally you cannot get flood insurance without a 30-day wait. But Matt here, who is also an insurance agent, has a form here that basically says if the water originates from federal land, which most of it would come from the Forest Service up here, there is an exception for that, especially if it's been exposed to a wildfire. So if you needed to get flood insurance and you haven't gotten it, they would be able to waive the 30-day waiting period, and you'd be able to get it right away. And so if that's something that's really important to you, that you're worried about, then you might want to get with an agent that does flood insurance. Flood insurance is done by FEMA, and the National Flood Insurance Plan is what we sell. We all do the same one. There are some other insurance companies that do it on their own, and I don't know who they might be. But if you're serious about it, then contact a local agent and see what you can get a price on. But I just wanted you to know that 30-day waiting period, there is an exception. And I don't know if Matt, if you have it, if you want to read it, but or if you guys want him to read it, but he has it with him. So just FYI.
Thank you. More questions? You done?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and to come and see what's going on. Anyway, I understand it's hard to deal with imaginary water. Me and the city have been kind of going back and forth on this for a number of years. I've sat down with a number of people. Nothing's really ever gotten done. And the problem is, the way I see it, my first question is, I guess, I heard you say, Jerry, a little earlier that you're going to remove dead, down, and small.
Is it 4 inch steep?
So anything over 4 inch we're not going to remove? Is that the case? I don't understand that.
People want it removed, we're glad to have the contractors remove it.
Anything over 4 inch too?
We'll remove whatever they want. There was people, when we cleaned for the canal fire, they would go out and mark trees. You can move this one, you take this one, not that one. So just to make it consistent, we said up to 4 inches to satisfy people. If you look at cottonwoods, 2-3 foot diameter, and you want them down, we may have to bring special people in to do it, but we'll get them down.
Okay, well, the story I had heard was anything over 4 inch wasn't going to be removed. And we got a lot of trees in the creek that are over 4 inches. A lot.
We were not able to work on some properties because they did not want us touching the trees. So this time around, we wanted to make sure that we said 4 inches or under unless we have permission.
Well, you got permission on my place because those are the trees that are going to stop up the creek and flood everybody's place. That just makes sense.
So like I say, please get with Michelle and get a form filled out.
It's already filled out and signed.
There you go.
Okay. The other thing is we talk about insurance. I've been talking about insurance with the city now for years about the floodplain in this creek. Problem with the insurance and the premium You call one of you guys, guess what? That creek for years has been unengineered, which means it's at the X rating. If you're going to pay a premium like I would, you're going to pay the highest premium they can charge you because it's unengineered. And I've been after this city to get that creek engineered, and they know it for years. And it hasn't ever happened. Promises, a lot of talk, just like Floyd said, he's a hard act to follow. But, the thing is we got to get some stuff done around here that protects us, okay? I brought up to the city the example where I wanted to borrow some money on some property so that I could do the building down there where I'm at in sales right now. Needed quite a bit of money. I didn't want to burn through my working capital, so I was going to go borrow some money. I found out that building, even though it's 60 feet in the air and the floodplain is not even in the creek down there, it's so inaccurate because it's not engineered that I couldn't borrow the money. The bank called and said, well, you're in the floodplain. I said, you got to be kidding. That building's at least 40 feet above the bottom of the creek. And he said, sorry, you're in the floodplain. I took a look at it. Sure enough, floodplain's not even in the creek down there. It's that inaccurate. All right? So here I am. The bank calls me up and says, well, we can't give you the loan. Guess what my property's worth now to a bank? Zero. Because that creek is unengineered. You know what they wanted to charge me for a 1-year premium for just that old used car lot? Not the body shop, not parts and service, not the sales building down there. $32,000 a year because that creek is unengineered. Now we're going through something like this and we're all going, what the heck? We've had years to take care of this. In the meantime, you that have property along the creek, like I do, you can't even borrow against it. You can't get a mortgage on it because that creek is not engineered. If I could buy flood insurance and afford it, then yes, I'd do it. Be glad to do it, but I have an unengineered creek. My property's worth zero. But yet when I want to go do something, now I got to give the city some credit. When I've done some stuff and I need to get a building permit, they've given me a break. But I had to literally scream at them because I'd say, you guys want to charge me like my property's worth something. And it's not. If you want to make my property, Floyd's property, Peggy Porter's property, every property that's along this creek worth something, get that creek engineered. And let's have something to start with that we can fix, that's accurate. If we don't do that, we're all spitting in the wind. And this creek's going to hit us all, and it's going to gobble us up. And I don't know, if it hits McSpadden Ford, I may not want to open back up again. You know what? That's just the way it is. I'm that frustrated with what's going on right now. So, leave the trees that are bigger than 4 inches. That makes a lot of sense. So if a car rolls down in there, gobbles it up, gets up against that big tree, it's not going anywhere, guess what? It all backs up. But you know what? We've got to get some things going, just like Floyd said. We got to get some things happening, and we got to get that creek engineered so that we can actually have some value in our properties. That's it. Now I'm done.
Thank you.
I'd like to respectfully request that we get on the city's agenda to discuss some of the things that we're talking about here tonight and see how things are moving along by the next city council meeting. And I would like to find somebody, get a list and get these places targeted that are the severest ones and target them as soon as possible. I'm asking this the nicest way I can because down here at these curves is where the largest stand of largest trees are and where the largest danger is to the property. And I know there's a few people that were here back when they had that last major flood. And we have, it astounds me that there's nobody here. Because when that booger hit, when I was a kid, Broad Street was gone. I mean, it was a mess. There was mud and buildings. It wasn't just mixed fabric. The Ford property, the furniture shops, Woolsworth, all of them. That creek was the same then. But it was actually probably in better shape flow-wise than it was now because it used to run all the time with free-flowing water that came out of the mountains. But these target places need to be targeted this week, get done, and if you can't get the contractors in there, they put the city employees in there and get them done, and forget the goddamn 4-inch thing. If it's in the city and on these curves down here above these bridges, get ADOT involved, get some chippers in here, and get it done. They got a chipper sitting over there at the goddamn landfill that they could tool around with a goddamn backhoe, and they could feed that sucker and gobble them trees up into fist-sized pieces and cover the wash, and they would flow right down if they don't want to haul them out. You know what I'm talking about, Utah. Private people would do this. And I dare say that part of that creek that's down here by the main bridge down here on North Broad is owned by ADOT. I don't know, but they have a pretty wide easement through there, and I bet a large portion of that creek right there with the danger area is ADOT.
I believe you're right.
And those trees down there are big. They're way up, and like the creek is way down there.
So, and Steve has been in touch with ADOT and talking about those bridges as well, correct?
And we could use this catastrophe or potential catastrophe, hopefully it's not, as that worthless Governor Ducey, we could get that, they've got money setting aside, we could get somebody involved, somebody coordinated between the city and the county and the state to get FEMA fast-tracking, getting this area re-engineered, because even for insurance purposes, it's way out of whack.
Yeah, we realize that.
You know what I mean?
We realize that, and we've actually are in the discovery process with FEMA right now to remap the area through the county. UDON's been involved in that, so.
Well, there's an opportunity here to, even if it doesn't happen, to really hammer them and push.
It's a process that takes a few years, though. It's not anything that happens overnight with FEMA.
It's only been 1954 since the last great big flood that's been recorded. 54 to today. How many years is that? We need to get that creek engineered. That's embarrassing to have it in a municipality right in the middle of town to threaten the people who do business here. That's embarrassing. It was $32,000 a year just to insure that used car bill for 1 year because that creek is unengineered and not accurate.
Well, I'd still like to have, I don't know, I've known Pastor and Fernando for more than I want to admit. Been here a long time. But there needs to be some targeting areas done, and they need to be done as fast as possible.
I agree.
Tomorrow, start the weekend.
We're
Go to the city, go to the county, borrow their dadgum chipper that used to be out the dump, or somebody else, get that running, get that dadgum guy, that Tree Pro out of Payson, he's got 2 or 3 chippers. Get them on these target areas that are on the major highways and on the bridges. And there's several of them up and down here. It's not just down where we're at. Because fortunately, I'm in a business to where I'm not gonna, I could take a backhoe in there and clean it up and open up in a couple of days probably. I'm not UDON. I'm not the furniture store downtown. I'm not the restaurant downtown. There's a vulnerability, man, and the county's allowed them to put some people up and down the creek up there to actually put bridges across the goddamn washes that aren't even legal to be installed in a floodplain or in a FEMA, but they do it. And those are going to plug things up too. And what a thing I learned from when we put in the senior housing is the lawsuits and stuff don't come from necessarily from the people upstream that have water back up and get flooded. It happens from the people downstream. So You know, I mean, it's tomorrow. Yesterday. Tree broke.
So, but I'm sure that Steve got your message.
What's that?
I'm sure Steve got your message. So, he's trying to get the contractors in the creek as quickly as he can. So, anybody else? Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sarah Bernstein, business owner in the community. One thing I notice, well, first of all, some of you may know that we live out in Icehouse Canyon. And in 17, when the front of the canals burned, trust me, I understand what it means to do a little bit of reclamation and cleanup after a forest fire. I've been down this path before, and it's pretty intense. When I come to work on a regular basis, I can't help but I pay attention to strange things, the height of curbs, or if something, the paving is a bit high on the scupper pipe releases on the street, strange things, but that's the way my mind works. But I noticed that the area down by Connie's, that bridge, has really become, the area seems exceptionally wide and really filled with a lot of deep sand. I think if we don't remediate part of that, it's just going to want to seep and creep. That's kind of what I foresee. I wanted to walk this week, and I haven't done it in the last couple days, but I know there are people that are homeless that do sleep down past Connie's in that creek bed beyond that bridge. I don't know exactly where or how they have their encampments, but that's certainly worth looking into, because it would be very sad to see somebody lose their life in that situation as well, just not thinking or being passed out or not recognizing that, you know, trouble is coming. And these are members of our community as well. But I really hope that people give some attention to that creek, and I just see it getting wider and wider. And if we need extra sand, certainly Connie's is a good place for it, for sure. Thank you.
So thank you. And we do know the areas around Connie's, and police have a plan to make sure that that our homeless people here are looked out after as well. So and contractors have been told that we need to have a passable path through the creek as they clean, because we'll put UTVs in there to make sure ahead of a flood. Isn't that the plan, AJ?
Yeah. My name is Tim Gonzalez. I'm with the Homeless Coalition of Cobra Valley, and I've been talking with Al Gameros, with the mayor, about putting signs up underneath these bridges to warn the homeless people not to be sleeping underneath these bridges. And so I'm working with him on that. I am confused a little bit about areas that are being looked at for the debris. I hear that everybody's talking about the creek through Globe, but the creeks that are outside of Globe, is there a way possibly to have like drones maybe go in? Because to me, it seems like a lot of area just to walk, like Floyd was mentioning, to kind of hike through the creeks. But if we could make a combination of using drones and mapping out the places where there might be a lot of debris or overgrown stuff like that, so that way it's easier to be targeted instead of, and then go in there and, you know, take out the debris or cut down whatever needs to be cut down and removed. You know, it's just an idea. But yeah, I'm very concerned about what possibly could happen, because I don't know, I've never seen this ever in my life, this much devastation going on in the Pinellas. I've seen it on fire before, but never like this, and it's just very concerning. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Did you want to talk about what the Bear team's been doing? So, let's do it right after him, if you would. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Troy Porter. I'm a resident in Kellner Canyon. Peggy and I moved up here in 1970, so we've been here a long time. We've endured several pretty serious floods. And the the 2017, we had the hired contractors make a trip through our yard, and they picked up a few branches here and there and threw them out. Basically didn't do anything. And none of the debris and the brush that needed to be cut out was done. And the contractor sat there and had lunch on our property and left their debris, their lunch bags, in the creek in our property. You know, that perturbed me. This morning, Peggy and I got out there because we was told that Kellner Canyon, we was the only ones in Kellner Canyon that signed and gave permission for them to come on the property. So they told us we was basically on our own, that there wasn't going to have anybody up there because other areas was needed in other areas. So I hired a contractor yesterday to come out and help us cut some of the debris out of the creek in front of our property. And the contractor didn't show up. We was going to have him help us place some sandbags around. We've got two houses there that need sandbags placed around them. The contractor didn't show up. So Peggy and I was out there this morning trying to cut and clean some of the brush out of the creek. So, you know, because we figured, well, if it's going to get done, we're going to have to do it. So I'd appreciate if something could be done. We got several pretty good sized trees that need to be chopped out, and that waterway is bottlenecked right in there. And we've had the flood come right up into our back porch. In 2017, during that flood, it came up in, and all that black gunk was that deep in our porch. And it washed out some water lines and electric lines that we had, and we went through and fixed all of that ourselves at our own expense, and we shoveled that black soot off of our property for a year or two afterwards. And we still have some of it on there from 2017 that we haven't gotten rid of yet. And I would like to see a little more participation and you know, helping clean up our waterways there so we wouldn't have these floods. Like I say, I've seen, since 1970, I've probably seen 8 or 10 pretty serious floods through there.
I think Mr. Sanders probably, are you ready to?
I'll be happy to talk with you when this is over, Mr. Porter, and we'll come up with a plan to address your needs.
Living out in the canyon, one thing I've noticed, and it doesn't pertain to everybody's property, but it will pertain to some. There are places where people have barbed wire borders that cross a creek, and it's all fine and fun until you have a situation like this, because those barbed wire crossings hold a lot of things back. So I know it's problematic for people, but not that so many people have their cattle turned out on the canals right now, but that's something people might just want to consider if they haven't thought of it yet, or if they haven't been faced with that challenge. Some places, look at your property, you may want to cut some barbed wire open if it's in the creek so you can let things move, so you don't get just a dam of trees and broken parts and boulders rolling down the hill. Just food for thought. I've been there.
Now maybe. So, you're right, there's a lot of debris that comes down, Sarah, and one of the things people don't think about is the big rocks that are going to be washed down. And even though the logs and so forth, as everybody worries about, but there's other debris that's coming down as well. And that's my segue into the Forest Service.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie. I'm standing in for Adam Bromley, who's our district ranger. So bear with me if I don't have all your answers, or if I'm not able to fulfill any of the requests for bear. I can definitely get a hold of that for you. But anyway, have been working closely with the BEAR team, so our burned area emergency response team, and they are looking at prioritizing. So the burn map that Janie Fuller was showing today, we are looking at that map and we are determining the drainages that have this biggest impact that could cause issues down below. So we're looking at those, we're prioritizing those for what we call channel clearing. So going in there, pulling out any dead or down brush or whatever that is of a certain height. But a lot of this is burned, so we're gonna have to go out there and do some reconnaissance, go out there and look at it, make sure that those drainages are clear, make sure we have some good access into them. We don't wanna put anybody in a situation where we have a rainstorm come in and they're now impacted because they're in the drainage. We're looking at a variety of different things, but it is something that we are looking at trying to complete over the next days, weeks, as we move forward. If anybody has any questions about the BEAR team, any of the program that we're trying to move forward with, any of the other projects that we have, because this is one of many that we're looking at on Forest Service land, we do have a website. Instead of me just rambling it off to you right now, if you want that website, you can come see me afterwards. I can get that to you. There's a phone number to contact. We have someone who will answer any questions and get you the answers that you need. But on a big note, we are looking at those drainages that are above the town and in considering which ones are going to be of impact and when and where we can go and do the channel clearing safely. Yes?
After the wildfire event, they hydroseeded the watershed very, very heavily, very successfully. And it was with a sterile oak or some kind of oak, I believe, that did not reproduce the following year. It did save that watershed, and it saved untold damages in Nutrioso and Alpine. Is there any talk of doing that to help out Globe Miami?
So I'm more familiar with the channel clearing part, but I know that they have a lot of prescriptions that they're looking at, and I believe one of them is hydro mulching, not seeding, but where they're going to put that in, I'm not exactly clear. So I can look up a phone number for you so you can call and get some more information for you, but there is a lengthy list of prescriptions that they're requesting.
So the BEAR team is actually mitigating just on the Forest Service, right?
Yes, but we have been, yes, and that's true. We are working with our partners, like the city, the Globe, the county, and stuff like that, but we are only focusing on the portion that is on the Forest Service.
I just thought that was important to note, but they're assessing and making recommendations on what the city and county can do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're working closely again with our partners, making sure that we're not missing anything and we can share information. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? None?
This map's based on a 10-year flood. Do we have anything based on an average over the last 10 years? 5 years?
Good question, Corey.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
The question was, this is based on a 10-year. Do you have anything that would be more current? Is that what you're saying?
Or based on an average over the last 5
Or
years?
based on an average over the last 5 years? A normal year.
Yeah, so we haven't done anything on the lower end of it yet. So at this point, I don't have it. I think it's something we could put together to kind of see what the average is, but it's not into a model at this point. So I've looked at the precipitation itself, and so there is data that we could create something like that, but it's not into the model at this point.
Could that come out of the LiDAR from the county?
Yes, we could change the rainfall on the existing models and run that to kind of see what kind of situation, what might be the results of that. But when you look at normal, I'll just take the museum and the Schultz fire as an example, we took a normal on that. So the Schultz fire and the museum fire is just on the other side of the mountain, and the precipitation for the previous from 2010 to 2019, we took that average, and then we applied that to see what kind of we had a really good record that we felt was really good, and then the following 2 years, these past 2 years have been the two driest years on record for the city of Flagstaff. So since the 1950s. So you can take an average, but for a past 5 years, but when you try to apply that to statistics, there's the potential that you're not going to get the whole picture. But it is something that we can create, and we can take that average for the past 5 years, see how that statistics based off of the past 50 years, and see where that places us within it, and then that gives us some information. But to say that that's more accurate might not be the case, just because past 10 years might be different than, or I say the past 12 years might be different than the past 2 years.
I guess my question would be, on this 10-year flood, we're looking at 5+ feet of water in downtown Globe.
Right.
So on average monsoon, are we gonna say 6 feet of water or 6 inches of water?
So I think it's important to note that he's looking at a 10-year flood with that rainfall intensity.
Right.
So that's the only way this would happen is if it rained that intense. So, and we're talking about 1.8 inches in an hour and 2.4 in 3 hours. So, it does happen because we have microbursts and I can remember 288 when the whole road washed out when I was with ADOT, and they had a series of microbursts out there. So it does happen. So and as Floyd was saying earlier about the urgency, I don't think there's anybody that preaches more urgency, as you can ask Paul, than I do. I want the city completely protected. So anything we can do, we appreciate you guys coming here tonight and talking and echoing some of the same things that John and I have been saying. It's just a matter of it takes time. And we haven't been able, we've geared up, but we just haven't been able to get people in there yet. And it will. And we've cleared some properties, and we will start on the Globe side either tomorrow or the next day, I think, when Steve can get people scheduled in. But any other questions? Are there some people that haven't been heard from out there? Questions? Gary, did you want to make a comment? Fire chief always can make a comment.
I guess from our end, we're always concerned about the response portion of this. Just everybody's heard the urgency that a potential storm could create. Please bear in mind, we're getting the message out. Stay away from low water crossings. Get to high ground. Heed the warnings, and please make sure you take care of you yourselves and your families. And the more work we do on the front end, the less we have to do, and that's a good thing.
Thank you. And it's not just about clearing brush and so forth for the city. John's in the creeks because we have sewer lines and water lines in there too. And we're in there making sure that we do the scour protection and so forth to make sure that we don't have half the city without water. So that's been a big emphasis. I think Mr. Crank said earlier, has anybody walked in there? We've had equipment in there trying to do some repair or some scar protection on our manholes and so forth that are in there. So we're very aware. The creek cleaning has not happened on our end, though. You're absolutely right. But anybody else?
I would like to point something out if I could. It's kind of related but not related. Because in the event that a fire or a flood starts, and we talk about trying to let people be aware, okay? I was kind of watching out for a couple different properties because one person just left or whatever, they're just fire things. And I was actually going out every hour and watching what Forest Service was doing and a few things. And I wasn't too pleased with some of the stuff that they did, but I'm not the only one that's had that opinion. But here's my point. Every time that you try to get any information on these events, we're talking about a water event here and rain gauges being set up, okay? You could not, if you're not on Facebook, and a large portion of the population around here is not into Facebook, they're on the internet maybe, they're at Facebook, but they ought to at least be able to call the police department or the sheriff's department and get contact with somebody who can tell them the status. Not one time in this last month did I ever call the sheriff's department that they would pass me to the gentleman who was in charge of the emergency response. Was there ever a phone picked up? They didn't even have a secretary manning the phone during this major fire. We got our information, don't laugh at this, we found about how bad it was when the ice cream man came by and told us. I'm serious. And I started calling that thing, and I met that gentleman that was supposed to be in the office in the bank, and he made a little joke about it. There was nobody manning the phone. So if they're going to do something to warn the people over the flood, and the sheriff's department did a good job of coming around in Six Shooter Canyon and Kilmer Canyon and stuff, try to get somebody coordinated somehow.
Maybe with the radio?
Anybody, just anybody that will answer the phone, because I'm not on Facebook. I don't get one around to read about Facebook. But I could plug in InSweb or whatever it is. There's got to be something locally
There is.
that we could go to.
There is, and Carl behind you there can, he's the head of emergency management, so he can tell you how to do that and even help you do that. Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Some of those, like you said earlier, some of those roads, Kilmer Canyon Ice Canyon, you turn off on one and you come back down along the creek.
So,
Once you turn off, there's no one you got to go out.
so if you're not plugged into this, Carl will give you some information right here.
Sure. So, again, Everbridge, I don't know, are you signed up for that?
What?
Everbridge? So it's our mass notification system. It sends out emergency notifications to the public via phone call, text message, email, or all of the above. It gives just-in-time information such as evacuation and stuff like that. We've also got a media group, so at the same time that message goes out to the public in the area selected on a map, as well as all of the local radio and newspaper stations as well. As far as staffing call centers, I mean, we've hit a low on staffing this year. My emergency management department, I've got 2 employees. And that's between managing all of the fires in the county. It's managing the recovery efforts for the fires and doing all of the emergency notifications. So Everbridge is a great tool. I encourage you to sign up for it. And so how Everbridge works essentially is if there's an emergency notification that goes out, we use it for all of the evacuation notices. We get on there, draw a circle on a map, type the message, and send it to everybody that's within that circle that signed up for it. It takes minutes, and it hits the radio stations as well. Whether they reach or choose to rebroadcast it is entirely up to them. But it's the same thing that I was talking about earlier, that when there's a National Weather Service warning, it automatically gets rebroadcast through Everbridge. So it's a great system to have. You don't need to have internet access or Facebook or anything like that. You can give your name, address, and phone number to that gentleman behind you right there, and he'll get you signed up, and you get that information as soon as it comes out.
So I encourage, if you're not signed up for that and you live in these areas, get with Justin Quarles back there and get signed up for it. It's very, very simple, and it'll if you have a phone at all, it'll come out on your phone. My wife and I know were evacuated in the canyon, and we not only got notices of evacuation, we got status updates. So it's something that if you don't have, get it.
So I have one more thing. You brought up a good point when as I was walking by, the ready, set, go notices, kind of what those mean. I want to elaborate a little bit on that. So Ready, Set, Go is an evacuation program that was agreed with all of the sheriffs in the state of Arizona to be adopted and used. The one thing that they didn't necessarily do was tell us how to use it. They just gave us the model. So I've talked with all the other emergency managers in the state, and we've kind of come to a conclusion that ready in our neck of the woods, we should always be ready. We live with trees in the backyards. We live with washes in our backyards. Ready is our status quo per se. Set is essentially a pre-evacuation notice. This is a notice to get bags packed and stuff like that. And of course, go means get your stuff and go. Unfortunately, set is sometimes a luxury that we are not allowed. If it becomes an immediate threat to life and property, we don't have time to do set. For example, in the El Capitan area where the fire was coming down the hill, fire crews were in there. I've talked to several of the boots on the ground. They were working on a dozer line in there, and they clocked that fire moving down towards them at 100 yards per minute. If we were to issue a set notice, we would risk lives. So set is, ideally something that we'd use, but unfortunately, it's a luxury that we're not always given.
That explains why I didn't get anything but the go.
Yes. Yeah. In a perfect world situation where fire is behaving, we would have time for that set and that go. But if we get a call and say, hey, it's moving too fast, we need to get people out of there, we don't have the time to play around with it. And yeah, and the ready, that's our status quo. We live in a heavily wooded area. There's trees everywhere. The only county that I know of that really doesn't live in that ready right now is Maricopa. And, you're lucky if one person on a block has a tree there. So that's understandable. Mr. Rios?
Carl, so, being that we live in the geographic area that you just explained, should we as a community just use ready as pack your bags now?
No, so ready is written as like maintain situational awareness, know about the threats that your area faces, right? So ready is, set is your pack your bags, go is go. Ready is just to maintain a sense of situational awareness. Like when we were looking at the guidelines for it, one of the things under ready was consider signing up for an emergency notification system. I don't want to wait until an emergency to have people sign up for that. I think that should be something that we do on a blue sky day and prepare for that. So us living in ready is Gila County's proactive approach to being prepared for evacuations. And I think one of the hardest parts about establishing how we use that is, when I called every other county in the state to ask how they did it, they fired back with, well, you guys are the ones that are having to evacuate every other day. How are you doing it? So, I mean, I hate to put it in that way, but, we've unfortunately had to do this more than we have ever wanted to. I mean, we've done more evacuations here in Gila County in the past 5 years than most others have done in their careers. So we really feel confident on that ready just being that stasis. Ready talks about knowing about your resources for emergencies. I think we need to do that every day of the year. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
So is the ready, set mode, go mode, or model, is that only for fires, or what kind of warning things are they going to put out for flooding? Again, just be that we just move to higher ground, or?
Yeah, so flooding is not something, fire, we can somewhat predict the movement. There's a little bit of lead time with that and everything. Flooding isn't going to allow that. And like I was saying earlier, evacuation probably wouldn't be the wisest move for a flood because that puts everybody on one road that goes right next to that creek. So Ready, Set, Go is an evacuation model. It's not fire specific. It's just that in this community, that is our main risk that we face that would result in an evacuation. So to answer that, it's non-specific to fire, but that's the use that you'd see the most of it in Gila County.
So what kind of, I'm trying to say, what kind of warning, though, for the flooding will they get through the Everbright, do you know?
So Everbridge sends emergency notifications via text message, phone call, email, all of the above. You can even sign up for fax if you wanted to. And if National Weather Service issues a flash flood warning, I'm sure you guys have all seen them. If you have a smartphone, that it'll buzz your phone. But folks that don't have a smartphone, Everbridge will call their landline, and it'll give them over a voice notice over the phone telling them there's a flash flood warning for so-and-so areas, and it'll notify them that way. And then, again, it'll also automatically broadcast these messages. We have a massive group of radio, news, and paper news companies listed in there, so they get those messages as well. So it's a pretty powerful tool. But it's only going to work for you if you sign up for it.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Paul, did you have something?
Mayor, do you want any closing comments? I do.
We'll hear from the IT department now.
Yes. Okay. Hello. Paul Jepson, city manager and junior IT intern. This community is blessed. There are so many people who've been looking out for us. We pulled together. We showed that small town spirit. We had a major event come through here. That fire moved from Superior all the way up to the gates of Miami. We had 3 major turning points that I won't go through that made a difference, that things could have gone a lot worse if we hadn't had the resources from the U.S. Forestry Service and the state and everybody helping to steer the fire. There's no fighting it. You're battling with it, but there's not stopping it. We had over 1,000 people come here to help us. At the same time, we were getting phone calls from the governor's office, from the state representatives, from Congress, from the Senate. Governor, because of what we had going on, created this the special session, the $100 million in wildfire money that we are now using right now to help fix this. We pivoted. The police were on. We were double upping on police, double upping on fire staff, public works in between going and getting their houses and their belongings in order, and all employees coming back and forth, trying to hold down the fort and make it through here. As soon as the fire is beyond us, we pivot, and we pivot for the flood. And we've been, everybody's been trying to get what we need when we need it. Bureaucracies and government does not move fast, but I'll tell you, we've been moving fast with our partnership with the county that's best it's ever been. Our partnership with Miami, our partnership with the state. And right now, you'd be surprised at the amount of funding that is flowing from DEMA and from the governor's office to help us get what we need. And so while we have this thing going on, we have this combo disaster from a fire and now potential flood, but their people have got our backs. We've got our own backs, but they're there. So we're doing the best we can. Everyone is doing the best we can. It's not perfect, but I'll tell you, we're optimizing, trying to get the best chance possible to make sure that whatever happens, it's as minimal as possible. And so I just wanted to thank all our partners. Mayor, did you want to finish?
So just a comment while the mayor is walking up to the podium. If you have not signed the cooperative agreement, please see Michelle. If your neighbors don't even know about it, the city, the county, we all have those forms. It's important to us that you get those cooperative agreements signed so we can get people in the creek immediately.
And it seems like there's a lot of business owners that aren't even aware that there's any potential for flooding. Are you going to be passing out flyers, or how are you going to notify people?
So there is flood flyers that the county just did. They're in the back of the room. There's something brand new. So we brought them here tonight to pass some out. And Michelle, you were going to do something with those too, right there on our website. So yeah, we're just getting all this together right now, but it is going to be out in to the public. And Michelle and her team are going out to try to get signatures. So if you know somebody that needs a sign, tell them to come see us. Harry, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I just want to make a few comments. I did write some notes down on some things that were said today, and what I want to hit on is, this meeting is not to cause division, create anger, or place blame on anything that has happened. It is about us working together right now in this situation. It's a priority right now, and the flooding is here. I seen this past year, and we've all been through it. Our COVID, we've been through a pandemic. I've seen our staff, I've seen our council into putting many hours in to protect, and the main protection was our residents and our community, and working together with the county to get vaccinations out there and being ahead of the game. So they have been, we come out of pandemic and we start lifting restrictions, and all of a sudden we get this unexpected fire that started in Superior. Never thought it would move that quickly to our town. And when it hit that west side of Miami that night, there was, I don't know how many council members were out there. We were out there. It was in Miami, it wasn't in Globe, but we were out there because we were concerned about our community at that time. It wasn't expected, it moved quickly, but it is a priority. And yeah, I think the creek engineering is important. We need to get that done, and I think it is in motion to get done, but the priority right now is post-fire mitigation and flooding. That's what we need to concentrate on right now, and we need to work together. You talk about strategy, and yeah, I think Steve and the county, in the city, we know where our target areas are, and that's where they're going to prioritize to put these contractors in, hopefully starting here quickly. So there is target areas that they get there. But we got to remember one thing. If you're fighting a fire, if you're worried about flooding, I know buildings are priority, our residents are priority, but there's no more priority than somebody's life. We talk about fighting fires, and we talk about putting people in those canals that are dangerous, steep. We saw what happened 8 years ago where 19 young men died because they were put in a dangerous situation. So there is strategy, what the fire service does, what the Forest Service does, in what they do. We're not going to risk somebody's life to save somebody's property. Yes, they're going to save property, but priority is life safety. So I just want to emphasize on that. And the same with this flooding. We need to make sure that we have the notification out there. I know Tim's been out there, and one of the concerns is the homeless. They live under these bridges. We are getting notification. So this is about working together. And you mentioned about the businesses not knowing. The last time we did the town hall, and we had business people that said they would help us spread the word. We have contacted some of those people that they're hoping spreading the word to all these businesses, because they said they would work together with us to help get this out. Because it is, Floyd's right, not everybody has social media, not everybody has Facebook. There's different components that people get notified. So we just need to all work together. And another priority we have right now, and I challenge you, is with the county. They have a sandbagging filling machine. We need help filling sandbags. And I challenge you, we're going to be out there at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. If anybody wants to come out, we'll be there filling sandbags. And we'll get our sandbag filler here. Hopefully tomorrow, get that set up. We'll have additional. We need to get those sandbags, and we need to help people that can't do it, the elderly, the disabled. If we know people that need it, let us know so we can get those sandbags to these people. It was a priority. And just one other question, is not in the city, but a question for the hydrologist. The creek areas that run along Railroad and Locomotive in the Claypool area, are those, how much danger is there? As we all have family and friends that live along that corridor where it runs along the railroad.
Gross Gulch, you mean?
Yeah, I guess if you behind the post office and all that creek area that runs through there, how much danger is that in place there?
I can answer that, Corey, if you're on. Okay. This is Steve. No danger from the fire. We went in and evaluated. The fire never got into that drainage. It stayed one drainage behind and will come down Russell. It'll go all the way around and then back through Russell. So everything in Claypool that comes off the side and then down by Railroad Avenue is just going to be the normal monsoon event that we deal with every year.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. But in closing, I just want to thank you for your comments. Thank you for showing up and coming. I can't commend our staff as, because I know what they've gone through COVID and through this fire, right away switch to fire and trying to, the meetings they attend, the strategy, the planning. So it's there. It's about our community. It's about our residents. It's about working, all of us working together, not against each other, working together. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. And make sure you get with emergency management or the Forest Service if you have any additional questions.